gentlemen, out of Mound, Minnesota, at 218 pounds, he is the great Greg Gagne.
Hey, what's up? It's Dominic D'Angelo of Brass Ring Media and FourHorsemenNetwork.com. And guess what? It is Straight Talk with the Boss. That's Magnum TA typically, but he's not here. It's me and the facilitator himself, Mr. Greg Gagne. Greg, how are you?
I've been facilitating all week between home, my kids, Laura, and Power Town. I've been facilitating all week.
All dang week. How's the back doing?
Yeah, having some issues. It's not so much the back, it's the left leg.
Really?
Oh, man, yeah. Having a real tough time, but we'll get through it.
Is it moving around, or is it a little bit of everything?
I don't know what it is. You know, yeah. I think it's all we got a lot of pressure on us right now between Power Town and, you know, we had to make a bunch of changes here with Power Town and bring on some people. And we've got a bunch of backers that want to jump on board. We've had trouble with China getting the action figures out because of the tariffs. They've raised the price. We would lose almost $50 an action figure to bring it over right now.
Holy $50! Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so we want to apologize to everybody out there, but have patience. Things will get better. Yes. I know we've had some comments here on Instagram about it, and I feel for you. We all do, and TA and I are busting our butts to get everything straightened out. But those tariffs threw us for a big one.
They can definitely mess with you.
We got the Four Horsemen sitting over there. We can't even get them over here.
The dang, oh man. Yeah, rough
maybe I'd like to leave Flair sit over there.
I know Flair's been
still out there wooing.
He's wooing quite a bit out there recently.
I saw his little story yesterday. He's a dandy.
He is. He's quite the wild card, you know. That's what makes him the nature boy, though. You know,
and he was like that in college. I mean, he hasn't changed a bit.
Yeah.
You know, just dropped some weight when he came to the camp. Patera was 340, and Rick was about 295.
Wait, who was 340? Did you say?
Ken Patera.
Oh, Ken Patera.
And then Rick was always training with Ken, and he was about 295, I believe.
Good golly.
And now he's about what, 230?
I think so. You know,
he's phenomenal in the ring. I mean, he never stops. He just never stops.
No.
You know? No. He was. I wish I would have been able to wrestle him, both of us in our prime.
Yeah. You mean Flair, right? You mean Flair?
I mean Flair. Yep. He was trying. He asked me one time. I was in St. Louis. He said, "How come you don't get a title shot down here?" I said, "Because, you know, I'm AWA. What if I knock you off?" The NWA will be in an uproar.
In a whole uproar, yeah.
Well, you wouldn't knock me off. I said, "I think I would."
You know what? That's just a fun thing, though, because you know, I'm such a novice when it comes to some of the historical aspects of the business. But when the WWE Network first came out, I tuned in. I binge watched a lot of the World Class Championship Wrestling, and I remember like Flair having that big angle with Kerry Von Erich in the cage match, and Freebirds turning on Kerry, smashing his head in the cage door, and like, you know. But the neat aspect was Flair would go around and wrestle everybody, and I know that's the deal with the NWA champion and everything like that. But Flair really exemplified that, of being such a great traveling champion, but was did the heel stuff where it's like you give the fans, the local fans, the false hope that, hey, my guy has a chance about winning this championship for our area, and he will go around and defend it.
Yeah, but Sam Muchnick, I mean, myself and Jim got really established down there in St. Louis, and but you know, Rick said, "Well, why don't they give you a shot?" And I think that was the reason why.
Oh man, yeah. Do you think you could have handled the crazy schedule and the requirements and the responsibility and all the travel going around? Like, do you think you could have done that the NWA World Champion? No, you don't think so?
There's only a few people that are built that way.
Yeah.
To take that on. We've talked about it before, but Vern only in the AWA, we only worked 250 was tops.
Right.
And when you talk to TA, they were 365 and double on Saturdays and Sundays in most cases. So
right.
They never got a break, but Vern wanted he wanted his talent to be able to be with their families.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in the summertime in Minnesota, the ratings always dropped a little bit because they were locked up all winter.
Right.
Now summer comes, they want to get out and they want to go boating and fishing and biking and hiking. And that's the only time they can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've noticed in the last few weeks, the Netflix ratings have gone down.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're just coming out of those summer months, and that's usually when TV drops down a little bit. So we'll see if they can get it back up there again. I'm sure they will. They've got such great talent there. They keep losing some talent, and hopefully they won't lose Triple H.
Yeah, so we were going to talk about this a little bit. According to Jonathan Coachman, a former WWE personality and ESPN anchor, used to be on SportsCenter quite a bit. He's been doing a lot more pro wrestling related things, and he had an interview with the two-man power trip of wrestling. Shout out to John Paz and Lavi Margolin, who I like a lot. But they happened to talk to Coachman. This is from Sports Illustrated, the take that they gave on this article. Coachman opened up on why he thinks there could be a falling out between Triple H and The Rock. So this is Coachman talking right here. And he said, and from my time there, in my time with The Rock, I know for a fact that he does not get along with Triple H. That does not go away. They've always been butting heads for years and years for a lot of different reasons. And then Coachman added that he talked to two people close to the situation with really good intel who share his prognostication that within 18 months, Triple H will not be running WWE anymore. So Coachman also added that he feels bad for Triple H. I actually kind of feel bad for him because I've always really, really liked him. But look at what happened at WrestleMania. He gets inducted in the Hall of Fame for the third time, an hour and 37-minute speech and 1 a.m. You're over scheduling the entire week. There's nothing free for fans to go to. And then at WrestleMania, you're going to disrespect Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin, walk them out there with everybody else to give a wave to the crowd, and you get your own water music entrance right next to those guys. So that latter part seemed to be more of Coach's perspective or opinion on things. But I don't know. So, Greg, I mean, during the Attitude Era, it's always competitive. It was really competitive. You had Stone Cold Steve Austin, you had The Rock, you had Mankind, you had Triple H, and obviously Triple H and Stone Cold were really Triple H and The Rock were really competing for that spot at the time. That goes with wrestling. It's the competitive nature of it all.
Just the way it is, yeah.
Like, I could certainly see some butting of heads from that standpoint, and I could see some butting of heads creatively. Ultimately, though, what I'd love to see is a good collaboration between the two, because I said this when I think Triple H started taking over, and then The Rock became on the board of directors. I was like, it's good that you have Triple H there being like the guy that orchestrates a thing, but then you have a failsafe in The Rock on the board of directors being like, who has a wrestling knowledge to be like, bam, we're going to preserve the legacy of wrestling and help out what makes wrestling good, and not have almost like a Disney takeover and like dilute what pro wrestling is all about. But what are your thoughts on all this, Greg?
Well, when you were talking there, I was really listening closely and thinking about it. And I've been thinking all week, because it came up on my phone that Triple H may be out. Mm-hmm. And I would think that would be the biggest mistake they could possibly make, is to let him go. He has such a great feel for not only the talent, but the sequence and the matches and how they should be laid out. We're at the AWA, and this is what I learned from my father. You can't hot shot it, is what they used to call it, with all these matches, because eventually it burns it out. And they've done a good job now by going to only their pay-per-views is where you're going to see those big matches. And you have to have somebody that really knows the business and the talent to lay that out right. You just can't have somebody from the outside come in and say, hey, this is what we're going to do with wrestling. And this is the way we're going to do it. Because if they don't have the knowledge and the background of what the sport and how the people see it, they can't do a real good job. And I haven't been around The Rock enough to know his philosophies and what he thinks. It could be maybe they're clashing with ideas or something between the two of them. I'm not sure. I don't want to speculate on that because they're two of the, greatest talents that ever came along in the sport. And I'm a little miffed I was really miffed at that whoever is calling that shot, if it's the people that now own TKO and they want somebody else to run it, they're making a huge, huge mistake.
Greg, I'm with you because Triple H, he's such a student of the game and he's like the well-rounded guy, really fit for the position. People can have their criticisms or say what they want, but when it comes down to it all, you look at the background that he had being trained by Killer Kowalski, having appreciation for talents like Harley Race and stuff like that, and a history of the business and in tune with that. He's a passionate student of the game, and this has been his focus. And you also think about who he's interacted and worked with. I mean, Vince McMahon obviously has his flaws and everything like that, but he was able to promote WWE and wrestling in a different light that was more spectacle and sports entertainment value to it all. But at the same time, too, Triple H knows the ins and outs of the business, the goods and the bads. He knows how to kind of angle certain things, like being a part of the clique and stuff like that, and getting knowledge from like a guy like Kevin Nash or Scott Hall or certain things like that. So I think him bringing all that knowledge, expertise, passion, and dedication to what it is, it would be a huge loss for WWE. A massive loss. And if you're to appoint somebody else in there, I don't think you could necessarily find a better person to fit that bill more than Triple H. Like, it isn't. And I think people are being critical of him when it comes to how people maybe are potentially being booked, releases going on. So like, we'll talk about R-Truth here in a little bit, but him getting released, Carlito getting released, some other talents being underutilized potentially. Heck, you cannot please everybody in the grand scheme of WWE or in a promotion that you do. You're going to upset people. It's just going to happen.
It's going to happen. It happened all the time.
It's going to happen, And
and you got to look at it. How long have those guys been on TV?
Right.
What more can you do with them? You either have to give them a break and get them out of there for a year or two, and then you can maybe bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it is, I mean, you're seeing a lot of matches that are really you've seen before.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Maybe not the match itself, maybe a little twist to it, but the same talent meeting the same talent. Mm-hmm. And that's what you have to really be careful of. You can throw it at the people only so long, and pretty soon, that those top people don't get the response they were getting before because they've run through everybody and they've done everything. So you really need somebody at the helm that can make those decisions and lay it out right. And that's what, I had the chance to work with with Triple H when he was first starting. And it was just a short time I was with him down in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. He was only there about 2 weeks with me. But what I really noticed about him is he listened. He never talked much. He listened. And whoever you were talking to and what you were telling them, he would listen to it. And, he probably learned that from Killer Kowalski, just listen, and, I didn't like him down there as Hemsley.
Yeah.
It didn't work for me. And I didn't feel like that was his real personality.
Mm-hmm.
And, when he went up to WWE, he started like that. But once his real personality caught on, I mean, he was money in the bank.
No doubt.
And he's a good guy on top of it. People like to work for him. And
that's it.
That's really important. You know, can't let the egos get in the way in that business, or you won't survive.
That's it. I mean, so there's so many different comparisons you can kind of make too. I mean, look at history. History repeats itself. Like if you're gonna, and egos have destroyed a lot of different things. We were talking about a couple weeks ago, I think it was, like, you know, all the promoters trying to get together and protecting their own guy, but having the super show to go up against Vince McMahon, and it just didn't work out because of egos getting in the way.
Egos got in the way. They needed to have one person that really had the background of how when wrestling first started on TV.
Right.
You know, some of these other guys, you know, the Crockett's were great, but they got good bookers in there. They had Dusty in there. And Dusty was, you know, he's got a great mind for the business and could run it for them. But everybody wanted their talent to look the best and didn't think about the overall picture of it.
Right.
And where you can take, okay, let's take a Kerry Von Erich. Let's put him with our AWA champion. Let's go here, and here with him. You know, and we'll take this guy, we'll take Ric Flair from Charlotte, and we'll take this guy from there. And somebody from Florida got Orndorff, bring him in. But, you know, I mean, Bill Watts was so excited. He loved Paul Orndorff, and we wanted to get him on board, but we couldn't, you know, we couldn't.
Yeah.
And because the egos got in the way.
Right.
You know? And that's the hard thing. And that's what they have to watch out for here with the WWE.
You know, Greg, so I made the comparison on a different show that I do too. So I work at Whole Foods. It's like my shoot job. Work at Whole Foods. I started there in 2017. And so, I started there in 2016. Well, 2017 is when Amazon bought Whole Foods. And so when I worked at Whole Foods before that, it was a very communal, a very like family oriented, friendly and customer friendly. And, you know, a lot of unique stuff about each individual store. It felt like a store had its identity, so to speak. And when Amazon bought it, I was like, people were really worried. They're like, oh, it's going to change everything. Everything's going to change. And I was like, nah, we'll be all right. It'll still be the same. Like, we'll still have the same vibe. I think I wasn't too worried. Well, but the beneficial part was, hey, we all got a raise, and it was life-changing, like, for the time. For me. It was like, oh my God, all right, this is great, you know? And so that was awesome. But so much of the identity got washed away of what Whole Foods was about, and like what I liked about it in certain aspects. But like, if you take a step back and you look at the grand poopah, the grand scheme of it all, it's making money. But you're also losing some goodwill with customers, I think, at the same time too. So we talked about that with yesterday. And I think a lot of people, or maybe there's this identity or thought process, especially by the social media hive, that this is Triple H's doing, or Triple H is really controlling. And I think obviously he has control of the creative aspect of everything. But I don't think a lot of the onus of what should go down is on him. Like, he's running a business and is the head honcho of WWE's operations when it comes to things, maybe making the final decisions about being released. But ultimately, there's a lot of different elements coming into play that is not necessarily beholden to him, I would say, at the same time. Do you agree with that, or do you think
without a doubt. You know, Vern used to bring in about 5 or 6 wrestlers when we were doing the booking.
Right.
And he would always listen from ideas from everybody. But then he had the final say and put everything together. And I'm sure Triple H has got that. He's got that group surrounding him. But I haven't been in one of their sessions to really know how they do it. I was there when Vince was running it, and he came up. He ran this idea. I mean, everybody was. So there had to be 100 people in there, right? And Michael Hayes and Dusty and you know, everybody that was a lot of the wrestlers, former wrestlers that were in there.
Too. Yeah.
And so Vince would throw out what he wanted done. And then he would go around and ask people. And usually they ask the former wrestlers. So he goes to the Michael Hayes. Hey, I like it. It's great. I go to this guy. That's great. Boom, boom, boom. Comes to Dusty. And he said, and Dusty said, you know, I don't I don't see it that way.
Yeah.
I see it going like this. And then Vince came to me and he says, Greg, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I'm on the same lines with Dusty. 2 weeks later, I was fired. Not if it was 2 weeks, but it was shortly after that.
It was not long after that, huh?
Well, then Vince said, no, well, this is the way we're going to do it. So it was his way.
Sure.
But, Vern, when we never did that. He listened to everybody, and then we kicked everything around and brought it all together.
Right.
But wrestlers, promoters, if you let the egos get in the way, eventually you're not going to be successful.
Right.
I guess that's the simplest way I could put it.
Well, that's the aspect of it all too. And if you're in the writer's room during the Vince McMahon era, obviously, like, he has his own way of handling things. And, so a lot of the writers and probably talents there where they might not do something that they think is what is good for wrestling or good for the story to the aspect, but what Vince ultimately wants. They know what Vince wants.
Well, so wrestlers, if they get their nose in it, they're going to say what's best for them.
Sure. Yeah. Wrestlers are
and that's why you have to say, this is the way it's going to, But it's quite an industry, and you have to have the right people in charge to make it work properly.
Oh,
and if they lose Triple H, they're going to have a big void, and you're going to see. I'd be interested to see what happens.
Well, here's a little bit of a follow-up I just pulled up, Greg. It's from. First off, let me ask you this.
Yep.
I was going to bring up the dirt sheet aspect of pro wrestling, but I wanted to get your thoughts too. What are your thoughts on Dave Meltzer?
On Dave?
Yeah.
Dave never really liked me much.
No?
I don't think so. I never really had any interactions with him.
Mm-hmm.
Back in our day, we didn't like that rag sheet that they put out. That's what we called it.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to read it and get their names in there. And that some of the wrestlers would feed him stuff to make themselves look good.
Sure.
And that wasn't my forte. I usually say what I think and how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like that, and a lot of people don't. They want to hear it. Oh, that's great. You did a great job. I was taught by Vern, don't do that. Be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Give them your own feelings. You have a good mind for the sport, so don't be letting everybody, get you to agree with them. You listen to it, and then you help mold it together. And that's what I learned from him.
Now, did you see, I mean, back then it was a different mindset of like, the dirt sheets is just like, screw that, all that kind of stuff.
Dave was, he wrote about everything and everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was very critical about some people, and, I don't think it was the proper thing that he should have been doing.
Right.
I mean, he's trying to sell and trying to get everybody to listen to his stuff, but I don't know how much he really spent time listening to that individual and then writing a story about it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It was his thoughts and how he felt about somebody. If he didn't like you, boy, you're in the bottom of your dirt sheet all the time, or you weren't on it, one of the two. But, he was a fan of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
He had a pretty good mind for what he liked, and that's the way it came across when he wrote it.
Yeah.
But honest to God, I'd hardly ever read him because he never said anything good about me.
No.
And I didn't really care.
You didn't really care too much. Well, what was I going to say too? Yeah, I think a lot of the thing too with Meltzer is like a lot of this is like his viewpoint. It's not like sometimes you get a little bit of like the journalistic, stuff of it all, but a lot of this, like the 5-star ratings and ratings of matches, and it's his opinion. And it's like, yeah, there's stuff that gets reported, but it is also stuff that was delved to him from other wrestlers and sources and certain things like that. So,
well, they had those wrestlers that would feed him. They wanted to, you know, be on his side and get them him talking about them all the time, which, you know, that's the way the business is.
That's it. Yeah.
And
right.
it's probably like that in all kinds of businesses.
Absolutely.
It is.
Always, it's still like that today when it comes to wrestling.
No matter if you're in top of an insurance company and you're listening to all these people and they're trying to get their deals in there, and some of them can get them in better than others.
It's a real political kind of game.
Yeah, it is. But that's where our world is.
Real quick too, I figure I should bring him up too. Wade Keller, he based out of Pro Wrestling Torch and based out of Minnesota and stuff like that. I remember I used to follow him a lot oh yeah, big time. That's how I got into all this, was following the PW Torch. And I remember him saying, I think his first interview or one of his first interviews was Vern. Like as a kid, he interviewed him. But what are your thoughts on Wade Keller and stuff as well?
Well, he was like Meltzer. I mean, same thing. You know, everything was coming from his viewpoint and what he heard from wrestlers feeding him. And you know, when they're feeding it, you got to kind of filter through the bullshit.
Sure.
Excuse me, but you do.
Yeah.
Because they all want to make themselves look good, and hopefully, you know, the promoters or somebody will read that and say, oh, you know what, geez, well, let's, you know, this Meltzer's got a point here with this guy. And you know, you really know that it's not going to work. But and that's a thing that it goes on in all sports, you know. Everybody, I mean, I played college football and baseball I played, and there's always those guys that want to get themselves noticed more than everybody else.
Absolutely.
You know, and whoever they can feed it to, especially if it's in black and white or on TV or radio, they're going to get their shot.
They're going to get it for sure, right?
And they're going to make themselves look good, and everybody else try to make them look bad. And I've never operated like that. I wasn't brought up that way. And, you know, a lot of your top wrestlers, I mean, there's a lot of really great guys out there today.
Yeah.
That don't do that. You know, I mean, I just, you know, Shawn Michaels, you know, when he came to us, he was a rebel.
Yeah.
And he's got a fantastic mind for the business. And, you know, he does that training down at NXT, and he's turned out some dandies.
Right.
But I turned out Tiffany.
Yeah, there you go. Yes.
No, like, and, you know, and he is a great man. There's a lot of great minds in the business, but you got to be careful, you know, and know which ones.
And there's so much of like
sorry about that.
It's okay. The residual effect that could happen too if you let somebody like a Triple H go. I mean, like Triple H and Shawn Michaels. Like, what happens with that if you're to let somebody? What happens with the whole structure of the writing team and everything like that? Like, if you're phasing these guys out and bringing in a new regime, it doesn't seem beneficial for.
Well, the other thing you don't want to do, you don't want to bring in yes people.
That's exactly it. I mean, look at what happened with McMahon. Like, ultimately, he had too many yes men in the kitchen, and when his creative stuff was just on his own mindset.
Well, he was the yes man. He was the yes man. He would listen, but you know, if he didn't like what you said, you know, we all threw our stuff out there, but it always ended up, and he had to. He was running it. He makes the final call,
right?
And you know, and you really have to be careful in that position who you surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
And that's why I say, you know, Triple H, just from when he took over, watching the difference of the product, I love it. And, and he's done a phenomenal job. I think they're running I don't want to say they're hurting. They're not hurting with talent, but the people have seen so much of the same people wrestling each other. How much work can you go with it?
Right.
You know, and that's what you really have to be careful of.
Exactly. I think WWE's big issue, and we talked about this all last week with Magnum, is like pricing fans out, kind of creating that separation of, that connection that pro wrestling has with fans. I think the higher the ticket prices, the less live events that you do. But maybe, and even to an extent, certain releases, if you're not taking care of certain wrestlers and stuff like that, you're not only hurting goodwill maybe with your roster, but you might be hurting goodwill with the fans that get attached to some of these talents. So you got to be pretty particular. If I was WWE, I would just be more mindful of that, less mindful of like how the political games are being played or anything to that effect. But
how long Truth been there? 18 years.
Oh my gosh! So it's just been a remarkable run because he was there. My first WWE live event I ever went to was a Raw in 2000, and so I showed up there, and a dark match was R-Truth tagging with Road Dogg, but at the time R-Truth was called K Quick, and he teamed. It was in a tag match against Charlie Haas and Charlie's late brother Russ, who passed away, and so he hit my radar then. And so he was in WWE for a couple of years, I think, for that. But then he got released, went to TNA as Ron Killings, and won the NWA championship and everything like that. Speaking of NWA champions, and so Ron Killings was that. Then he came back. I want to say maybe it was like 2009, 2010, and he's been there ever since. So it's been an amazing run.
I mean, it really is. But again, he was able to carry it those 18 years.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of people, are seeing McIntyre and who did he just wrestle?
Damian Priest.
Damian. Mm-hmm. They started a year ago with this thing, and finally finished it off, you think.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden they bring it back again and try to recreate another feud with them. Feud's the feud, and it'll always be there.
Yeah,
but you can't make it a weekly deal,
right
anymore. It has to be something really special. Leave them away from each other for a year.
Well, it sounds like Drew is taking a little bit of a break. It sounds like they wanted to have that finish that they had where Priest hit him with the chair and walked out in the cage that Jesse was critical of. And then they had so I think Drew's taking a little bit of a break once they bring him back.
You need to do that once in a while, because
for sure,
if you're on there every week, you get the great exposure and people remember you. But eventually, if you don't have the right situation for them, or repeating it over and over and over again, it just burns out.
Oh yeah. And the absence makes the heart grow fonder, So
that's why I kind of want to see how their ratings go as they get into the summer here, because the summer months, that was big down in the South. That's when they drew their money. We drew our money in the North in the wintertime.
Yeah, I believe it.
And in the summer, people wanted to get out. So, and I've seen that their ratings have dropped a little bit in the last few episodes.
Yeah.
I want wrestling to continue.
Absolutely.
It's great theater. Great for TV. It's made for TV.
It's the simplest form of storytelling. It's good versus evil, and you get the mix of violence in it all, and that's what people like, right? So
it really is. We were watching. Who was I with the other day? We were watching a match, and they turned to me, and they were real novice. They were watched wrestling. But he said, "It's so different today." He said, "I got involved in your match." Or the match he was watching, not necessarily where there was a story in the match.
Yeah.
Now it was boom, 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 boom. Well, when you look at the TV, the attention span of the public is 8 seconds, and they click the channel.
Yeah.
You got 500 channels, 600 channels, whatever you got. You go wherever you want. So they speed everything up. And you kind of lose a little bit of that story. The veterans still know how to do it, even though they're speeding it up. But some of the younger people don't, and it kind of the match gets lost to me a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it makes any sense. Have everybody turned us off now?
I know we've been lasting longer than 8 seconds. I wonder if you will get on off here. So yeah, reason I brought up Meltzer is he had this to say about the Triple H situation. So this was in the
what did he say?
Latest edition of the Wrestling Observer. So they have different viewpoints on many things, referring to Triple H and The Rock. They are at times on different pages. Levesque is entrenched. He was the person in charge with the company doing record business. But it was noted by those well aware of the situation on the inside that while people think The Rock has the edge being close to Nick Khan, the reality is, in the big picture, Levesque has gotten what he wanted. Johnson didn't beat Reigns for the title and then relinquish it to the people as a babyface. Cody didn't turn heel, which is what I think The Rock wanted. And then The Rock wasn't even involved in the latest WrestleMania build, albeit that was his choice after the night of Cena turn. So he's saying that Triple H has more reigns than The Rock does, control of things at the moment. And so
well, he should. I mean, The Rock's doing a lot of other things. He's
right.
doing his movies and everything, and you know, you have to have somebody there that every day grinding it out. And Triple H he's the guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think they'd be really hurt if they lost him.
Absolutely, and I think The Rock has somebody like a Brian Gewirtz, who was the WWE head writer back early on in the Vince McMahon. You might have worked with him back then. I don't know if that lined up. Brian Gewirtz, do you remember that name?
Yeah.
Yep. So he helps out The Rock with a lot of stuff, the $7 promotion and stuff like that. So like that's somebody that could get implemented back in, but ultimately though, it's just like you really want, I think, a pro wrestling guy in there, and that's Triple H. Triple H is the guy I just would love to see a good collaboration between, if these guys are conflicting, if The Rock and Triple H are conflicting with one another creatively, like I would much more like a collaboration between the two, a meeting of the mind.
I would too.
You right?
Yeah.
That's hopefully it works out, because I do think from a creative standpoint, WWE's been its best it's been in years, because Vince McMahon, what he was doing was not vibing with people. It just wasn't. And it felt such like a stale product. With Triple H taking over the creative aspect of things and being somebody in control, things have been like, not super engaging this after WrestleMania, I'll admit, but I think it's been engaging enough that it's been better than what we've seen in the past.
Mm-hmm. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Can I? Okay, go. You got something there?
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, we've talked about all the talent that Vern produced over the years.
Yeah.
I was going through some stuff the other day, old wrestling stuff, and trying to organize things. And I found this sheet, and I can't go through all of them, but here's some of the people that he's trained, okay?
All right, let's hear it.
You ready for this?
Yes.
You tell me if they're not good, and I'll throw them out of there. Ric Flair.
Good.
Ricky Steamboat.
Great.
Gene Anderson.
Good.
Larry Hennig.
Oh, good.
Jack Lanza.
Yes.
Bulldog Bob Brown.
Ooh, nice.
Lars Anderson, Larry Heineme. Ole Anderson.
Yeah.
Went by first the Al the Rock Rogowski. Blackjack Mulligan.
Heck yeah.
Gills the Fish Poison. Greg Gagne, Jim Brunzell, Jimmy Valiant, and Buddy Roberts. Baron Von Raschke, Dick the Bruiser, Paul Ellering, Ken Patera, the Iron Sheik. My mom gave him that name. Sergeant Slaughter, Buck Rock and Roll Zumhoff. Dale Lewis. That's a lot of people probably didn't hear much of him, and I'll just go through a couple more. Chris Taylor, Brad Rans, John Nord, and Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig.
That is quite the list.
And that's that's only half of it.
I know, right? I don't think you even said Ken Patera on there.
Yeah. I did say Ken, didn't I?
I don't know. I don't know if you didn't say him in that list.
Oh yeah, he's right under Paul Ellering, Ken Patera.
Oh, maybe he did then. Okay. How about that? Wow. Yeah, that's
I mean, those are some main event people right there.
No doubt about it. That's
there's another 2 pages, but I want to go through all of it with you. And I try to, some of the people won't recognize some of the ones, back in the 60s and early 60s and the late 50s that he trained.
Yeah.
Wilbur Snyder,
Yeah. So we'll have to take a moment too. Maybe we should start doing a segment where you bring up a wrestler that's kind of forgotten about in certain ways, and you can kind of give a highlight and talk about them a little bit. Yeah.
Well, here's one I was talking. Or his daughter called me the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Hard-boiled Haggerty.
You've talked about him before, I know.
Yeah, and he ended up in the movies. He was what was he? The blacksmith on the movie Paint Your Wagon.
Oh wow, okay, with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, and he was in with Maude in one of those Maude movies. He did a couple movies, and in the ring back in the day, he was tough. and then Yukon Eric, and he was wrestling, I believe it was Hans Schmidt.
Whoa.
And Hans Schmidt went up the top rope and came off the top rope with a knee. And Yukon Eric was just coming up to his feet, and he hit him with the knee right over his ear, and his ear came right off and was down on the wrestling mat.
Oh my God.
That was in the 50s. And Yukon picked up the ear, put it in his pocket, and finished the match. Blood everywhere.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So every time whenever he came to town, when I was young, I'd go in and I'd always look up at that little ear he had on that side.
Jeez.
But,
holy smokes. The Hard-boiled Haggerty, he had quite the look about him. He definitely had the Hollywood vibe to him a little bit.
Didn't he? Yeah. Pull him up there.
Yeah. I'm seeing some pictures right here. I'll see if I can pull up a photo of him here real quick.
He was Paint Your Wagon, come along.
Come along.
He was doing that.
Did he sing in that? Because that was a musical, right?
Yeah, it was a musical. Yeah, he did. He sang along.
Oh my God.
He had the horseshoe up there, all red. On had been pounding it, and he started singing. Wagon, come along. That's all I remember the song.
Right? Yeah, I'm trying to get
to do all of it.
You do the whole thing while I get a picture of him set up.
But again, you go back to that talent that was developed, and we were very fortunate because usually people that got into the business, it took them 5 to 10 years to make it to main event.
Right.
3 years, we were all in the main events.
Wow.
And TA, he was just a natural, and he learned a lot of his stuff from Bill Watts and Eddie Graham.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They both had the same philosophy. I mean, Bill wrestled with Vern, and he had the same philosophy as Vern and trained people the same way. Eddie had his philosophy, which was phenomenal. He trained so many great athletes. And then you had Stu Hart up there in Hart Country in Canada, and he turned out a ton of talent. And today, I really like the way they're doing it, where they have the NXT and they're exposing them now on TV so that when they do come up, they're already known. I just hope it's not too much exposure.
That's what I was going to ask you. If you thought, like, man, so many of these wrestlers aren't benefiting because they're immediately on television already, and they just have to kind of have their growing pains, so to speak, in the ring.
That's where TA and his staff, Triple H and his staff are good because they know how to do that down there. But I've been watching, and it's, God, some of these kids, are they having too much exposure? Then they bring them up, and they're on fire right away at the WWE. So it's working for them. And
it's working. So you think it's a 6? Yeah. So like you would, if somebody had, for example, let's just use Tiffany as an example. Now, obviously she had the athletic ability and all that stuff, but say if she was pretty green and but she had all the charisma, had like the personality and stuff like that, you would feel comfortable with putting her on NXT broadcast early on, even if she wasn't that good in the ring at the time.
I would have kept her back so she could make a big splash when you came to the WWE.
So you would have kept her, but say you're.
Oh no! When she came up to Raw, I'd have made sure that she really had everything down. And was
before you put her on NXT, even.
No, yeah.
I'm saying, say if you were say if you were Shawn Michaels and you were running NXT.
No, he wants to put her on because he wants them to get used to wrestling with the cameras on.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and you have to make sure that they're ready for that. You don't want them to go on there and. I mean, I watched Stephanie in a couple of matches. I mean, Tiffany in a couple of matches with Jade Cargill.
Jade Cargill, yeah.
And they kind of had a few mishaps in there. And then she had a couple stumbles when she was with the Samoan gal.
Nia Jax.
Nia Jax. But Nia is such a veteran, she covered it up pretty quick.
Yeah.
But I could tell she'd stumbled around a couple places in those two matches. But again, you know, she's been in it in, what is she, 5 years now, maybe?
Yeah.
But, you know, she was up there in 3 years.
It's pretty crazy.
Who could have trained her to get her ready?
I don't know. Who had, was it Magnum? Did Magnum train her?
No, he didn't.
Oh.
No, but
Jesse Ventura. It was Jesse.
Yeah, it was Jesse.
Nail it.
Yeah. But, you know, and it was the philosophy of those people that trained the people, from Eddie Graham. Joe Blanchard was another good one. Even Don Owens.
Yeah.
Out in Oregon. I forget who his trainer was, but they did a phenomenal job of turning out talent. Buddy Rose.
Yeah.
He started here, and Vern sent him out to
Portland.
Oregon. Yeah. And that's where he got the polish. He got finished off by the right people.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way he usually did it. Like Vern would send people down to Bob Geigel. He was another one that was, you know, great at training people. And he had Harley there to help out.
Yeah. Wow.
So you had all that. Today, the way the style is, you know, I don't know if I would even fit in very well with that.
That's a tough thing, is like, who was I talking to? Shoot. I was talking to a wrestler. I don't know if it's one I do a show with or I was interviewing, but they said that you have to, was it Heyman? Oh, that's what it was. Heyman was on Pat McAfee. That's what, and Heyman was talking, they were talking about that show that's coming up. Is it Unreal? WWE Unreal. Okay. Where they're going behind the scenes and showing you the writing room. And all that.
You know, I
don't like that. I'm not a fan of that either. And so, but Heyman kind of expressed the same sentiment too. Like, he's like, that is not how I handle things. That's not how I would do anything like that. He was like, but I do understand the fact that, you know, you can hop on the train and keep going, or the train's going to leave without you. And like, so he was talking about like, so like, if they want me to put a mic on and kind of do that kind of aspect of things like that and show me, you know, interacting backstage with who, you know, so be it. But he was like, it's not necessarily a high thing, but he's like, a lot of the things, like, you have to kind of adapt to kind of move forward with stuff like that. So,
well, I'm like you. I agree with you. I can't. When I heard that was coming on, I cringed.
I just don't care about that stuff. I don't
let the people, because they've been told that it's all a show now.
Right. Exactly.
Why tell them that?
Yeah.
You know, because it's people that don't know how to defend it properly.
Right.
You know, or guys that were pissed off because they never got the big push. And then they're telling them, oh, this is the way they do it and all that. Why take that away from them? Let them keep guessing.
Yeah. Sure,
they're going to say, oh, it's just a show. But, you know, I remember, God, where was I? I'd come out of a match, and this older guy came up to me, and he said, you know, those other matches, I didn't buy into them, but that was a wrestling match.
Yeah.
You know, and it was because the way the story was told in the ring. And you want to keep them on the edge of their seat, not really knowing.
Yeah.
Now you're exposing everything. Now we'll see. I mean, that could go on, and who knows? I mean, they have so many TV shows on right now. They're getting a lot of exposure, and there's a point where you can get overexposure.
Absolutely.
And then nothing works for you.
Nothing works.
Then you have to start all over again.
Right.
And that's kind of my fear of it. You know, you get all these different channels now. I mean, the other night, now I found I can get on TNA. You got TNA, AEW, you got WWE, and there was 2 other groups I never heard of that have TV shows on there.
Yeah.
I just could only watch it for about a minute and a half. I had to turn it, but it was wrestling, but it wasn't wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how else to say it. The kids they're not learning. It's like a good movie. There's a storyline.
Right.
You have to be good enough in the ring to tell that story in a physical manner.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do that and be successful, you make a lot of money. But now people are saying, "Oh, we're going to the circus tonight.
Right.
We're going to see all the events. It's a spectacular."
Yeah.
Is Gunther going to win this one? Or is Jey Uso coming out on top?
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think on that one?
I don't know what they're doing with that storyline, to be honest, because it's just like
it bounces around.
Yeah, because we've seen you talked about this earlier, like how we're seeing the same matches, and this is kind of like the same match we're getting, and like it seemed like Gunther was almost turning babyface for a little bit, because how they're positioning him, and then this past week on Raw he was more of a heel, and it's just like, well, why did Pat McAfee give him a run for his money, and then he shows him like a little bit of respect at the end? It just, some of this stuff does not. That aspect is really missing with me. I think that's the biggest gap that WWE has right now, is that storyline between Gunther and Jey Uso. I don't know.
Me too. Jey is a great performer.
He is, yeah.
So is Gunther.
Yeah.
But are they just going to keep going back and forth?
Right. Like, what's the deal here? It's just like,
I mean,
I thought we were getting some development.
Keep away build it up for a year.
Absolutely.
You know? Gunther wants him. You can't get him. You know, hey, here's the next guy in line. You lost. You got to get the back of the line.
Right.
You know, and let him fight his way back up to it.
That's it.
But either they're not confident in Jey, and they want to put Gunther back in that spot. I mean, that Jey's got the people so with him. Yeet.
Yep.
Yeet.
Well, he's got to be tagging with Cody.
He's got me doing it.
Greg doing the. He's tagging with Cody this weekend at Money in the Bank against John Cena and Logan Paul. That should be a pretty fun match.
That should be a phenomenal match.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I think they could. You want to talk about some storytelling there? I think you're going to get some of that.
And that Logan Paul, I mean, we've talked about him before, but to be at the stage he's at is short of time as he's been doing it. It's phenomenal. Now putting him in with Cena, he's going to even learn more.
Oh yeah, heck yeah!
And down the road, I'd like to see him take the title away from somebody.
Me too. I really would. I honestly
because he has natural heat.
Yeah, absolutely, he does, and
he knows how to bring it out of people too.
And he's not afraid to be like a chicken shit either. He's not afraid to be a chicken shit like something.
No, and that's Bobby Heenan was the greatest at that.
Yeah,
the greatest. Even Ray Stevens.
Yeah.
They knew how to do it, and the people were so mad.
Yeah.
I've told that story many times. A top wrist lock in Denver in a tag match with Patterson and Stevens and Heenan in the corner. 8 minutes. Hair was pulled, trunks were pulled, top wrist lock, no punches, no kicks, and a riot. People trying to come in the ring and save us.
So, Greg, I guess
do that again.
Yeah, but that's kind of what kind of gives me a little bit of hope, though. To be honest, is like, we see a lot of these matches, and like you get desensitized to them, or you don't get engaged enough with them because they're not really telling a story. But it's crazy to think, but somebody like a Logan Paul, who's a complete outsider of pro wrestling, only has like a little bit of experience, knows how to keep somebody engaged and the fans engaged into it, and like you're getting a much more storytelling aspect with a Logan Paul match than you are say like so two high flyers just doing like crazy spots the whole time.
I know it. And I mean, they're coming off the rope and catching them, and then
it's just like waiting.
Here goes another one. She gets right up after this big bump.
Yeah,
oh God,
that's it.
God.
So I'm thinking, like, I'm hoping that at some point, and I think everything what is old is new again. So I'm hoping the pendulum swings the other way again at some point.
Okay. My prediction is that show that's coming out. It's gonna hurt.
That's what Charlie just said in the chat here. He said he thinks it's going to hurt the business too. Yep.
And then down the road, they're going to have to rebuild it, and that's going to take quite a while.
Yeah.
And if the ratings start going down and they start losing some of the networks, then what?
Then what? Then what's next?
They're fortunate enough because there's so many channels right now, and wrestling still is intriguing to people. But if your ratings start dropping,
yeah,
you don't want that. It'll be interesting to see. But boy, I tell you, that one just for us old school people, that one, I don't dig that one.
Don't dig that one.
No.
We'll take a couple questions here real quick. You can fill us in.
Still watching?
Oh yeah, we got some folks still tuning in. We got
some
Matt Karcher, who's a big fan of the show. He asked, "Didn't Yukon Eric commit suicide? Did he commit suicide? Is that what happened, Greg? Do you know?
Yukon Eric?
Yeah.
Boy, I don't remember.
I'm gonna look him up.
I want to say no, but I'm not positive on that.
Yeah.
I wish I could answer that one for you, but I'll find next week. I'll have the answer for you.
Let me take a look here. I'm trying to Google real quick. Death after divorcing it. Yeah, he unfortunately ended his life.
He did, huh?
Yes, 1965.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a shame. I don't even want to talk about it. It's a sad story we've been looking at. But yes, he did, man. Yes, he did.
Well, thanks for bringing that one up.
Right, geez, what a way to.
You got another question for us?
Yeah, we got another one here. Let's end it on.
Who's alive?
Hopefully on this side. Well, this person's not alive, but you might have some good stories here.
Okay.
Chris P asked, Mr. Gagne, what was your relationship with Stu Hart and the Hart family when you were coming up?
Never really had one with them.
No?
My dad had one with Stu.
Yeah.
But I was never. I wrestled. Oh God. It was his first. No, I didn't either. I'm thinking of Tully Blanchard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was never around the Harts.
No.
Unfortunately, Stu kept them up here. Vern wanted to bring them in a couple times and wanted us to go up there, but it never happened.
Just never panned out, huh?
No, most of the promoters that had their family in, they like to keep them there.
Yeah.
I went down to Atlanta for a short little run, but I never really got a run at the Garden. I was up there for a couple matches, but nothing, big. St. Louis was an NWA one, but we also had the AWA TV show in there. They were floundering a little bit, and they called Vern, and we put our TV show in there. So they had two different shows, but then they always, it was always the last match was always NWA, except when we were wrestling tag team there.
Yeah.
They put on the championship match before us because we usually could rile up that crowd pretty good.
Yeah, get them energized up.
Which was, it was a compliment to us to put us on like that after, Harley wrestled whoever for the championship, and they put us on after because they didn't think that they would be able to follow our match. And that's a true story.
Wow. How about that?
And that's why Rick wanted to wrestle me out down there, but they didn't want it.
They didn't want it. Man, yeah, you guys could have had a pretty fun program, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
We had I think we'd had a really good match.
Definitely, I think, right? Like you have the arrogance and the the style of Ric Flair, and then you're like more of the the working collar kind of like fight from underneath a little bit and like but still have the athleticism stuff. I think that would have been a cool clash of personalities. I think
did I ever tell you the story when we first started?
No.
Oh, didn't I? When Rick and I
maybe you might have. Yeah, what was it?
The ring collapsing?
Yes, you did. Yeah.
I mean, that was like our third match.
That's crazy.
We wrestled 20 minutes, broken 2 minutes into the match. Rick slid down, and I covered him halfway down. The referee was tilted upside down, counting.
Yeah.
We went. That was 2 minutes into the match. We wrestled 20 minutes.
My God,
people were going nuts. Even I tell you, when we went in the locker room, they're all coming up to us. My God, you guys!
How do you do it, right?
Yeah. So I guess we had something.
Had something going. You had a little bit of chemistry there, huh? At least at the very least.
Yeah.
Matt Karcher does add. He said you wrestled a tag in Hawaii against Brett. Actually, he said he saw a video of it. Do you remember that? Yeah.
Who's Brett's partner? Does he remember?
Do you remember that? Oh, here it is. Yeah, he just added that. You tagged with Buck Zumoff, and Brett's partner was Carl von Steiger. So how about that, Steiger? Carl von Steiger.
Well, I know Zumoff was over there in Hawaii. They used him.
Yeah.
I don't remember the match, though.
Oh, okay.
I thought, though, that Brent and I wrestled each other. And it must have been in that match, but neither one of us have been in the business very long, I think, when we met.
Wow, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that would have been with Buck. That would have been a little later in our career. But, a lot of turnbuckles, a lot of body slams. I don't remember a whole lot anymore.
Well, it kind of mixes the memory up a little bit.
But I wrestled Tully Blanchard down in Texas. It was about his second match.
Wow.
And we had a really good match. He was another natural.
Matt adds that it was 1978. Oh, 79. 1979.
79.
Wow. Matt, if you can, DM me the match or something like that. Send that to me. And I'll share it with Greg.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Yeah. We'll close it out with this question here, Greg.
Okay.
This is from Mark Keegan. He says, question for Greg. Was he in the studio when Ray Stephen broke Dr. X's leg? Do you remember that, Greg?
I don't remember if I was in the studio. I remember seeing it on TV, though.
Oh.
And it was it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mean, Ray Stevens is one of the best in the business.
Yeah.
Timing wise and when to do something, when not to do it. And he could get a little out of hand though once in a while.
Believe it.
I remember one night in Rockford, Illinois, he hit me and I didn't feel anything.
Uh-huh.
And he said something in my ear like, "Sell it." And I said, "What?" And whop! I got it.
I felt it. I felt it all right.
I had no.
I felt it.
I felt that one. I remember that one.
Well, cool. This has been a good show, Greg. We covered some good ground on this one. A little bit of history, a little bit of current events. Got some good stuff going. So
I hope so. And, I hope our viewing audience kind of climbs. And, TA and myself, we like to have questions from the people.
Absolutely.
And don't go too far back for me.
Well, Greg, I didn't even tell you this on the channel. This was like maybe 2 weeks ago when I started posting clips on Brass Ring Media. I posted your guys' conversation where you were talking about bullies in wrestling. So you're talking about Billy Robinson. Magnum was talking about Buzz Sawyer. That clip I did got over 10,000 views.
No kidding.
Pretty darn good right there.
Well, let's get them to tune into this now.
Let's get them. We got to get some more like that happening. Cooking.
Well, we got a lot of stories like that. I mean, if people want to know some of the people we wrestled and what the matches were like, they love talking about that.
Oh, heck yeah. I think our thing that we got to start focusing on is, more historical stuff that like pertains to you and Magnum, but also like we can blend the current event stuff here and there. But I think ultimately, like it's like people.
I mean, the current event stuff, they hear it from everybody.
Right.
We're just getting a different view from when we come out with it. But, you know, TA had some phenomenal matches with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And talent, and so did I. And tag team matches, single matches, and people like to remember some of those matches.
Oh, for sure, right?
You know, and if they have one that they would like us to talk about and we can remember it, we'll talk about it.
Oh, we'll talk about it. Yeah, that's a good idea. I should start trying to get a gauge for some matches that people can send to me. I can watch and familiarize myself with, and then
give us a heads up before we come on so I can remember it all.
That's it.
I'll forget it by the time we get on anyhow. So
yeah, I usually do.
But I just did today. I hope the people like that. I wanted to bring out some of that's only about half of the people that he trained.
Yeah, that's a cool thing to do. Yeah, you have to pick like a wrestler that's not really talked about moving forward, and we'll cover them moving forward. By the way, here's Hardboiled Haggerty, everybody. Boom, take a look.
There he is.
Look at that. That is like some Clark Gable looking stuff right there.
He was rough in the ring too.
How about that?
Oh yeah.
Well, everybody, go and paint your wagon and sing a tune while you do it, and we'll see you next time here on Straight Talk with the Boss. That would be Magnum TA, the boss, but we got the facility.
The boss is busy today.
The boss is busy.
He's handling stuff.
He's taking care of business right now.
He is.
But hey, we took care of business here. Thanks to Greg Gagne, and thanks to Laura, and thanks to all you guys.
Hey, Laura. She just went downstairs. I'll tell her you gave her a nice send-off.
I gave her a shout out. So
all right, thanks, Tom.
All right, we'll see you guys next time here on Straight Talk with the Boss. See you guys.
Take care.